Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today for brain health and stress management. Our presenter today will be Dr. Neal Patel. Dr. Patel is a family medicine physician currently in private practice in the city of Orange. He was born and raised in Orange County and completed his medical school and residency in Southern California. He believes in the quality of medical care versus the quantity and approaches medicine in a holistic manner. Patient care has always been his top priority, and he continuously strives to provide it at the highest level. So I will now hand it off to Dr. Patel.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for all joining. My name is Neal Patel. As Lauren mentioned, I have a private practice here in the city of Orange, and I'm very big on education, especially when it comes to Alzheimer's and the memory space. So today we're going to talk a little bit about stress and memory. So let's see. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, hopefully you can see the screen here. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So who here has ever said this before? Well, everybody is stressed. I hear this all the time in my office. We ask the questions, what's going on? Patients come in with pain and all types of different symptoms. And I say, how about your stress? And the number one thing I hear is, well, yeah, I'm stressed, but everybody is. So we've come to a place in society where stress is now our normal state of being. But is that any good? Or do we prefer to just hit the bed some nights and hope that our stress just sleeps away? Sleep is the best meditation, Dalai Lama. So you ever wonder what is stress, right? Stress is such a hot topic nowadays with mental health, with everything going on in the world. Everybody's focused on their health, stress, how to reduce it. The definition of stress from Merriam-Webster dictionary is a constraining force or influence. The Mental Health Foundation says it's stress is our body's response to pressure. Very interesting. We tend to ignore our body and think stress is only in our mind, but every cell in your body has memory and it has emotion, and it has it can fluctuate. World Health Organization says stress is defined as a state of worry or mental tension, either caused by a difficult situation. Stress is natural, but it can prompt us to challenge and address certain challenges. So, you ever wonder, is stress really all bad? Is there any importance to having stress as humans and as animals? Well, stress can help us motivate and improve performance, right? Some people work better under stress, sometimes like athletes when they're under high pressured situations, they can actually have a better response. It can teach us resilience and adaptation. As humans, we are the most adaptable species ever on planet Earth that we know, and stress can help us learn and grow from those situations. And of course, you can't have the good without the bad. So stress keeps things in perspective, helps us really appreciate what we have. And it acts as a safety mechanism. There is a evolutionary and a biological reason for stress. Now, people may say there's different types of stress. Who here has had any of these kind of stresses, right? Most people go through certain stresses like this: death of a spouse, divorce. It's not all bad. Marriage can be a certain type of stress, but it can be a good stress. Retirement could be stress in a sense. It could be a good stress, such as pregnancy. And then, of course, you have the daily stresses. I got too many things to do. Oh man, the price of goods, eggs are going up. Oh, I don't look good. I want to lose weight. I have a deadline for work. I'm not sleeping. I'm frustrated. The list goes on and on. Let's talk about the history of stress. How did stress even become a thing? 1952, the DSM, which is the main, I'd say, manual for all mental disorders, published stress as a type of diagnosis. 1936, actually, it's kind of out of order. Dr. Hans Sale, He discovered rats exposed to a stressor, which is an event, leads to a syndrome, quote unquote, not related to physical damage. Long story short, he found that rats who were placed under certain stress showed physical damage without being physically damaged. That's how powerful stress could be. Then 1955, Leo Sternbach, he was a chemist. He created Librium. Anybody heard of benzodiazepines? Anybody heard of Xanax, alprazolam, right? May have heard of those, Valium. Those are pretty common types. He was the first one to actually create it. 1976, Dr. Sale yet again develops a general adaptation model, which we'll talk about shortly, about how do we adapt and how do we learn from stress. In 1984, Dr. Richard Lazarus, psychologist, defined stress as lacking resources to respond to a threat. It's a very interesting take. And what have we discovered today? We have discovered we are overworked and overstressed. So, like we said, Dr. Sale developed or created this model of how stress. Excuse me for a second there. Sorry, I think my computer messed up. Hang on a second. Apologies. All right, can you guys see my screen? Hopefully you can see my screen again. Okay. All right, so let's go back here. Yeah, so he developed this model, stress response, how we react to stress. Initially, you start with low stress, right? When something happens initially, you kind of freak out, have a panic. It's typical. Then your body tends to adjust and adapt. But if the stress continues, there's only so much your body can handle. Then what happens? You get into this phase three, your body, it wears out. It burns out and it says, forget it. I can't handle stress anymore. I give in to the stress. So, like I mentioned, there are different stages of stress. The initial stage is about 15 minutes. So, imagine you're late for a meeting, you're going to panic. So, that initial trigger, it activates different parts of your brain, mainly something called amygdala. That leads to that typical flight or fight response that we know about. And then what can that do to your actual body? Heart rate can go up, blood pressure goes up, tension, fear, anxiety. This is normal and this is expected. However, let's say that stress maintains. All of a sudden, your body has to reset its normalcy. What we thought your body was normal, now it's saying, no, stress is my normal way of being, which then leads to poor sleep, low immunity, unstable mood, and emotion. And then let's say the stress continues for months or years. You lead to exhaustion. Your brain literally starts to change and the structure starts to change. Okay. So we're going to go through a few of these things. All right. So this is initial. Yellow, this means, not a good sign. Red, warning sign. Now we talked about the different stresses. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I just keep breaking up. I apologize. I think something's going on. All right. Okay. Let's try. Sorry about the delay. Share here. Okay. Let's go right. Okay. So there's different types of stresses. You have a short term, which is positive. You have public speaking, right? In that moment, it can be stressful. Short, frequent, episodic, right? That could be things like work deadlines, caregiving, if you're on a schedule, and then chronic, of course. That is something that's deep. Poverty, childhood trauma. This is something you have to really look deep into and see what's causing it. All right. Okay. So let me see if I can switch out my screen. Apologize for the delay here. Okay. Let me see if I can. There we go. Let's look at this video real quickly about kids. We talked about stress with kids.
Thing I worry about is my cousin because I don't want him to get bullied.
My family, my future, tests. I don't like the pressure. Just does not feel good.
Being worried feels like frightened or scared or nervous.
Like my heart is beating faster and faster and faster.
Like something's wrong.
I feel like there's butterflies in my stomach. To relieve stress, I like to talk about it with my mom and go out and just help the process. And then I just calm down.
Breathe in, breathe out. Like lay down, listen to music, putting my mind on something else. Cuddle with my cat.
Right? So imagine kids can identify stress. How do we identify it? What do we do when we're stressed? Some people, these kids obviously have a way to de-stress. Oops, how do we do it? Right? Our fatigue is often caused not by work, but by worry, frustration, and resentment. Dale Carnegie. So let's talk about stress in the brain. What is actually control stress? Anybody here heard of the limbic system? This is a very complex situation. I'm really sorry about this. Hang on a second. Yeah, we may have to try something else. Okay. Right. So the limbic system basically is responsible for our emotions, our memory, motivation, and stress response. It includes certain things. Amygdala, anybody heard about that? Amygdala is like your fear response. We'll talk about it. So there's a lot of different parts. So like I mentioned, the limbic system is complex. The main parts are the amygdala, this little blue dot right there. So crazy how such a small part of the brain can affect us so intensely, because this is what processes emotions and fear and anxiety. So when we're freaking out, we're worried, this is what triggers. Hypothalamus, kind of here, this actually controls our physical and bodily functions. For example, who here has ever told their stomach to move? Who here has ever told their liver to release enzymes? It just does. It's quite incredible, the body. So hypothalamus controls all those things that we don't have to. Main part, hippocampus, these two. Hippocampus is responsible for memory and learning. And then, of course, you have something called the prefrontal cortex, which tends to create our personality, helps us think and make decisions. Let's see if this is going to play.
If we cut the brain in half, we can see the structures that make up the limbic system. The limbic system is a group of anatomical structures that function together as a system. And there it is responsible for emotion, behavior, memory, olfaction, and motivation. This is the anterior, and the posterior is over here. We can start with the olfactory bulbs and the olfactory tracts. Running over the top here, we have the corpus callosum, which is a commissioner tract. And inferior to that, we have the fornix. We can see the mammillary body here. Running around here, we have the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory. And then this large spherical object is the amygdala, which is responsible for fear.
So it's very interesting how the fear responds right next to memory. That is the reason, right? If there is some issue fear-wise, you don't want to forget it, so you don't have that issue. So stress response, what actually is happening in your brain when we say, hey, I'm stressed? So step one, you get stressed out over whatever the case. Your amygdala detects the signals as quote unquote stress. These signals are now sent to the hypothalamus, which remember controls all those automatic functions of our body because it's preparing the body for either a fight or flight response. The hypothalamus communicates to the pituitary gland, which is another little gland, and that gland sends out hormones. Hormones are like the messengers that can change a lot of different things in the body. And then if you guys have heard about adrenaline and cortisol, those two, of course, stress-related hormones, those get released to prepare your body for the situation. So stress response, like we mentioned, prefrontal cortex, remember, that's your brain, that's your personality, that's your emotion that controls it. The hippocampus then creates another, what they call feedback loop, very complex. Regardless, let's say you had stress, you get this release of hormones to your adrenal glands. The cortisol and adrenaline actually can increase your lungs, increase your heart rate, increase sugar production, decreases digestion, and increase blood pressure. So quite phenomenal how quickly this happens in span of milliseconds. So have any of you guys heard of the difference sympathetic, parasympathetic? There's two different parts of our brain. Mainly the sympathetic is when we're stressed. All these things start up. Your eyes dilate, your heartbeat goes up. But what happens when you eat? Does anybody really ever stress out when they're eating? Don't you tend to feel relaxed and calm? Everybody's usually happy after they eat. Well, that's because it's something called a parasympathetic system. Your bladder is kind of relaxed. Your stomach is actually now more active. Your heartbeat calms down. Your saliva starts to produce. Now, if you look on the left here, there's 4 different responses you can have to either sympathetic or parasympathetic. Anybody heard of the fight or flight response where you kind of get stressed out and you get kind of punching around? So this is one. But remember, if it's parasympathetic, let's say you freak out or really panic in that moment, you can freeze or faint. That's also a protective measure. So like we mentioned, stress response, sympathetic, you're fighting. You're looking for a perceived threat. Flight, you're going to run away. Parasympathetic, sometimes we freeze. Sometimes we just faint. Let's see if we can play this.
Stress may seem like a byproduct of modern life, but the feelings which cause it are as old as humanity itself. An important part of our evolutionary heritage is the physiological capacity to respond instantly to a threat or anything we perceive as a threat. We've come a long way, but the fight or flight response is still there. Today, we call it stress. This innate reaction automatically prepares us for direct and decisive action. Unfortunately, our body responds the same way, even when direct physical reaction is no longer appropriate.
Okay, so very interesting. This is an old advertisement, I think in the 90s, and they very clearly summarize, explain stress actually really well. It'd be nice to have these type of commercials now as well. So life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated, Confucius. So we talked about how stress affects the brain, like how it goes through the brain. Now, what happens with stress on the brain? Excuse me a second. Let's try that one more time. Sorry about that. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so stress on the brain. So we mentioned, remember, stress on the prefrontal cortex, that is your personality. When you are actually stressed, you actually change something called dendrites. Dendrites are basically the network that connects the nerves together. So imagine you have 2 phones. How are they communicating? Back in the day, you have that line that connects the 2 phones together. Those are dendrites. They create the communication network. When you're very stressed, you create what they call remodeling. So instead of improving your communication, it reverses. You not only reverse your communication, you decrease the number of lines of communication. So this is very powerful stuff on the brain. you actually decrease a a hormone that's released in your brain called glutamate. And like we said, that's responsible for learning and memory and brain function. So, right, normal activity, you want it to be green like this. You have good regulation, you have good control over your thoughts, your emotions, but you're stressed. So now this part of your brain is not doing the trick. The amygdala is now hijacked your brain and it starts to panic. Prefrontal cortex. Now the hippocampus is the same thing. Hippocampus is, remember, is based on your memory. For memory purposes, your dendrites can shrink, which again means you receive less input. So imagine nowadays we can communicate in multiple forms: phone, email, fax, Instagram, mail. Imagine with stress, you start to take away those options. Now, let's say you've been so stressed, you're only stuck with the phone now, or only stuck with the mail. You limit your options for communication, which then also increases stress on your brain. Becomes a catch-22. Dendrite shrink, the number of dendrites, as with the prefrontal cortex, reduces. You get decreased synaptic plasticity. Very interesting. As humans, we are the most adaptable species, but when you're stressed for long terms, you're not able to adapt as well. Your brain goes into panic mode, is in a mode of fear versus a mode of love and growth. Also, over time, decreased neurogenesis. Stress actually can reduce your memory and your ability to form new neurons or memory. And over time, it can shrink that part of your brain. If you don't use it, you lose it. If your brain is always stressed, is not even thinking, is not even able to remember things because it's so stuck on that focus of stress. So, right, same thing overall, stress actually reduces this part. How about the amygdala? Remember, the amygdala is the main center that creates stress and fear and anxiety. Ironically, those dendrites expand. Makes sense, right? You're activating and you're using this more. Hence, you have more communication with it and more signaling. Increased number of dendrites. So now you have more lines of communication with this part of your brain. Increased synaptic plasticity. Not only do you increase how much, it adapts better. So now your stress not only increases, but it becomes part of your norm. So very fascinating how this plays out. Stress in the memory, like we mentioned earlier, hippocampus is part. Over time, have any of you ever experienced this where you've been so stressed that, oh my goodness, I forgot the coffee on the, in the microwave, or I left the stove on, I was so stressed. I was so stressed, I was supposed to make a left at this light. I totally blanked out and I kept going. What's happening? You reduce your concentration. Stress is so powerful, it overpowers your ability to think and to focus. You increase your forgetfulness, right? You're only focusing on stress, hence you forget other things that are important. Like we mentioned, your long-term memory can decrease. Very important, especially with Alzheimer's, memory issues. And like I mentioned, cognitive decline. Stress basically can increase your chances of dementia and memory problems in the long term. And as you keep stressing, your sleep can suffer, which then increases your stress. You may stress eat, which can affect your body. And then your emotions go out of regulation. So stress in the hormones, as we mentioned, cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine. You may have heard of these as the fun hormones when you're driving fast. It's exciting. You get an adrenaline rush if you're doing an adventure. Cortisol is exciting if there's something good going on. But what happens when you're constantly in a state of high cortisol? You get all these issues. So yet again, like we mentioned, the brain structure of stress, overall, the white matter, your brain in general is made of two different parts, the white matter and gray matter. As mentioned in this slide, white matter is kind of the inner part of your brain. That's kind of the center. 60% of the brain is white matter. This is what we call the connections. These are a lot of the dendrites, a lot of the networking communication. It's developed your 20s, middle age, it peaks. This is what interprets all the data, right? It takes all the data from your senses, from your life, and it try to put it together. The gray matter contains the neural cells. Okay, these are the main bodies. The phone. It processes and makes sense of the data that's coming in. Same thing with stress, white matter, which is this part. You get increased myelin. So imagine like a wire, right? If you have an electrical wire, you have a tubing around it. That's insulation because you have electricity going through it. The brain is no different. The brain is highly electrical. So you have wiring around it to protect it. But if you're too stressed, you get too much wiring. So imagine like your iPhone charger. The wire is fine, but now you're taping it with electrical tape like 30, 40 times. It's not going to be as flexible. It's not going to be as convenient to hold and use. And same thing, you get scarring, which is gliosis. The organizing of the brain starts to mess up. You get a lot of damage. Gray matter, same thing, decreased volume, loss of neurons. Let's see if this is good.
And try not to worry. A new study shows that being stressed out can actually shrink your brain. Jim, researchers found a link between high levels of the stress hormone cortisol and brain size and function. The study looked at more than 2,000 people who took tests to measure their thinking skills, and they found that the outer layer of the brain was smaller on those who were more stressed. Doctors also say that stress can lead to memory loss and headaches.
Right, so that's not stress. The news is not stressful enough as it is. It's probably stressful to hear stress about news on stress. Okay, so long story short, stress is clearly a popular topic. And then what happens over time? Your decision making can get affected. So imagine you're so stressed, now you're not making the right decisions. You become less flexible in the way you think about things. Your judgment, how many times have you made a poor decision or a rash decision when you're stressed, right? You can overlook things that you probably would not if you were calm or relaxed. You may become concerned about making a decision. Indecision also can increase. And over time with a lot of stress, you tend to lose sense of your risk tolerance, right? You say, "Who cares? I'm stressed. I don't care. I'm going to do something I usually wouldn't do." And then all of a sudden you develop more issues down the line. So on this left side right here, over time, you get cognitive load, you get decision fatigue, you're not able to make decisions. You lead to tunnel vision. When you're stressed, you're only very focused on a certain aspect. You may avoid decisions. Now, if you look here, anybody ever heard of this? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a very common type of graph or pyramid. Explains what is needed for a human to be what we call quote unquote successful or at peace. Obviously, step one is your body and your mind. You got to take care of that. Food, shelter, makes sense. Step two, you got to have safety. You got to feel safe where you live, where you work, where you shop. And then once you get through your physical needs, then you get into your emotional and psychological. You need to feel love. You need to have friends. You need to have somebody you can rely on. Once you have that, do you feel accomplished? Do you feel successful? Do you feel that your life, you accomplished what you wanted? Do you feel you helped? You accomplish your goals? And then, of course, self-actualization. Do you feel this life was worth it? Did you have a good experience with this life? Do you feel at peace with not only living, but also with passing away? Because death is a part of life, not the end of life. Just to reiterate, stress. Physically, stress can cause exhaustion. I've been exhausted from stress before. Any of you ever experienced some of these issues? Headaches, blood pressure, tension, immune system can get weakened. Very interesting. Sexual dysfunction, aches and pains, digestion. I want to talk real quickly about that. I have so many patients, especially nowadays. I got gut problems. I'm constipated. I got diarrhea. I feel a stomach ache. And I always ask them, what are you eating? Are you exercising? Then I ask him, are you stressed? And same thing, oh, I'm stressed, but that's normal. I say, well, never forget that your brain is smart and it's lazy. Your brain says it's stressed. Does your brain really want to deal with it? No. So where does it dump the stress? In your body. And the biggest place where it's dumped is your digestive system. Like I mentioned, I personally have never told my liver to work. I've never told my pancreas to work. I've never once told my blood to pump harder or to turn off blood vessels. It just does. It's so smart. Your gut is your second brain, some people's first brain. Um, that's why that old saying is not, that saying is not trust your brain. It's called trust your gut. Why don't they say trust your brain? There's a reason, because your gut is that intelligent. So I always tell patients, when it comes to stress, you cannot ignore the stress that it puts on your digestion. And then emotionally, of course, most of you may have experienced something, anxiety, depression. If it's really bad, it's not controlled, panic attacks, which is hopefully no one gets to this point. And then of course, like a sadness. And just to clarify, this is pretty convoluted, but this talks about the difference of your brain structure in function, frontal lobe, and what happens with Alzheimer's. So frontal lobe, like we mentioned, it controls your decision-making, impulse, personality. Over time with Alzheimer's, you end up getting atrophy, which is weakened. It basically gets smaller. And you start to have issues with attention, tasks, things like that. Interestingly, with occipital lobe, this is your eye, the part of your brain that controls your eyes, your vision, right? Processes shapes, colors, depth. What happens with memory? You get confusion, vision loss, even hallucinations as as Alzheimer's progresses. So it's very fascinating how stress can affect all different parts, including Alzheimer's. Yet again, we mentioned the amygdala with Alzheimer's. Oh, so sorry about this. Let me pull that back up. So we mentioned the amygdala, right? So that's emotional processing, right? Fear based. What happens with Alzheimer's? It becomes atrophy, but there's evidence they can still lead to agitation and aggression. So very interesting. Of course, Alzheimer's is when your memory is not working, parts of your brain don't work. Hippocampus, if you remember, that is the main component of memory. So with Alzheimer's, of course, everything shrinks. You tend to forget newer memories more often than older memories. So imagine your memory as a filing cabinet. You store it from the back end. The newest memories get stored in the front. So as things change in the brain, the first files to get deleted are the newer ones. So patients come say, hey, I told my wife 4 times what we were going to eat yesterday or what we're going to eat today. Told my wife we have an appointment. If you start listening to music that maybe the wife grew up with, she will remember that and respond. This is very interesting. I think this is really cool. We can physically see the changes. Let's kind of focus here. This is a healthy brain. When it's red, that means your brain is active, which is great, and that's what we want. But look carefully here. This is a toxic stress brain. The red is good, most active. Yellow is okay. Green actually is bad. Purple, no good. Black is like no activity. Look carefully here. Temporal lobes, your frontal lobe. How much it changes with stress. You're literally shutting parts of your brain down. Just look here on the right side. Relaxed brain. Right, you got all this nice green, nice red. All of a sudden, you're getting more black here, more green, less red. Interesting scans here. Normal brain, right? You have a nice mix, red, blue, green. Depressed. They say, why are you so blue? Well, look at the brain itself. It is actually blue. You have less activity in so much of the brain. Bipolar, actually, interestingly enough, different type of pattern. You get a lot of different shifts. Look at schizophrenia. This is an actual true psychiatric disorder. Your brain is overwhelmingly hyper and overwhelmingly stressed. OCD, of course, is Just like you may have mentioned, may see their traits, their brain is also kind of scattered. Same thing, a normal brain versus a depressed brain. The way they check this is the brain is a very highly vascular system and it uses a lot of energy. When we eat sugar, actually your brain can consume about 20 to 30% of the sugar we eat, which is amazing. That doesn't mean you eat more sugar to help your brain function. But this PET scan, what it does, they tag sugar molecules which are not digested. So you can see it light up on the brain. Normal brain, right? You got a nice little green, nice little mixture of blue and green. Look at a depressed brain. Barely any green. Nothing is lighting up. So you can see just how much it can affect it. Last few slides of the brain. Normal brain, same concept. Anybody heard of this term, mild cognitive impairment? That's sometimes when we may see some concerns with memory, but we are not at the stage of diagnosing something like Alzheimer's. But look at Alzheimer's. Complete black in the middle. Your brain is shrinking. Things are starting to mess up. PET scan, same deal, right? You have less electrical and less sugar activity in your brain. And just on a pure anatomic, a physical, look how much of a difference the brain looks when it's, remember, this is the white matter and that gray matter on the side. Look how big the holes are, what we call the ventricles. Look how shrunk it looks. Look how deep these crevices are. So what a difference a brain. Now this is severe Alzheimer's, I would say. This is advanced. But this is what's happening actually structurally to your brain. A diamond is a piece of coal that did very well under stress. So with all that stuff about stress, are you guys stressed? Is that it? Do I leave it here and say good luck? Or is there anything we can do that's in our power? There's everything. Anything is possible. There's a lot of power within ourselves. Stress and anxiety, real quickly, some statistics. Most common mental illness in the US affects 40 million adults over the age of 18. This probably number is going up daily. It is treatable. Ages 30 to 50 are usually the most stressed. That's obviously due to most people have a young family, they got kids, they have work. So a lot of moving pieces. 55% of Americans are stressed during the day. So maybe ask yourself at this very moment, are you stressed? And of course, work is among the top 3 sources of stress. We tend to work a lot and play a little. Okay. All right, let's see real quickly. Really sorry about these technical delays. I'm gonna have to restart this one more time. Hang on a second. All right. Oops. So the most important thing, let's go here. All right. Sorry about that. Is exercise. Who here likes to exercise? Anybody? Yeah, hopefully all your hands should go up. All right, exercise is key. That is by far the number one thing across all journal articles, across everything that can help not only your body, but your mind. Okay, just move it. 30 minutes ideally a day of just walking. Make sure you drink enough water. A lot of people neglect that. Our bodies are made of about 60% water. Weigh yourself maybe once a week. Portion control. Food, food, food. Everybody loves food. Don't let food rule your stomach, right? Or don't let your stomach rule you. Please rule your stomach. If you can, of course, sleep is important. Nowadays, I understand the stresses of work and our sedentary lifestyles. I tell patients all the time, if you're able to move, just walk, stand, get a standing desk if you work, like a desk job, and just really make a conscious effort to move. And patients say, "Oh, I'm doing." Patients tell me, "Yeah, I do the dishes. I'm always up and down in the house. I'm doing the laundry. I'm ironing. I'm doing stuff." Well, is that really exercise? If you're brushing your teeth, you're technically exercising. If you're eating, you're technically exercising your hand. Is that exercise? Exercise is done with the conscious act of exercising. Real quickly, what happens when these things don't work out? If you're dehydrated, you can get muscle fatigue, headaches, you can get really tired. Portion sizes, who here likes to eat at restaurants? Mostly everybody. When you go to a restaurant, it's quite incredible. The portions are big. The average portion in a restaurant is 2 portion sizes. So I usually tell patients, maybe you get half a portion or take some home. Physical activity, I mean, we can go on and on about the benefits. It's just phenomenal, right? Brain health, heart health, cancer prevention, weight, bone strength, you name it, helps with everything. So I highly, highly recommend just move it. Okay. Hopefully this is not the type of exercise you are doing. All right. This does not really count as exercise, and make sure you have proper form and shoe wear. Mental success. Keep your mind active. Who here likes to watch TV? Who here likes to go on social media? Who here uses TV and social media as a way to de-stress? Not a good idea. Your mind is an active organ. You need to stimulate it. You need to challenge it. Watching TV, doing social media you're feeding your brain. You're not using your brain. You're just feeding it. So TV is probably the worst thing to do, especially long periods of TV. Music has been shown to definitely help with stress and with memory. And we are humans. Hopefully the goal is to try to learn something every day. With Google and internet, be careful because you may learn the wrong things. So Google responsibly. And teaching. I'm a big fan of teaching and education. I like to empower my patients. So teach something you like. Whatever you like to do, just teach your loved one, teach a friend, anybody. And of course, try to avoid negative people, right? There's a quote, it says, negative people have a problem to every solution. So if you can avoid certain negative people, try your best. All right, Sudoku is a great mind kind of puzzle game, music. Remember, success, you rarely see the hard work. You gotta put in the work to be successful in anything. Now, emotional success, this may be the most underappreciated or most neglected, I'd say. Right? Like I said, the title of this is, well, everybody's stressed. So is that good? Not necessarily. We are emotional beings. We're meant to, and we're social beings. Very important. Either you have a support system, friends, family. With technology, the beauty is there are ways to keep in touch, but it's our job to make the effort. So just like me, I got a chance to hang out with my cousin yesterday after a long time. It was really fun, but that's on me. I got to make the effort, just like maybe you have to make the effort for other people. Improve your emotional intelligence. That's very underlooked. We don't really learn how to manage and maintain our emotions when we're kids. So it's hard to teach, but there are definitely ways. We're social beings. Join things, join clubs, join activities, go volunteer, go hiking. There's so many things out there where you can meet people and meet like-minded people. Who here likes to laugh? Hopefully you guys don't like to cry. So if you're gonna watch something on TV, if you're gonna go on social media, watch something silly, watch something funny, because laughter is great. And there is nothing wrong with asking for help. We are actually meant to help each other. So please ask, never feel like you cannot ask or reach out. Right? Emotional intelligence includes social skills, motivation. Laughter actually has a lot of health benefits, surprisingly, which makes sense. You release endorphins, stress. It can actually help fight infection, which I'm not surprised. And it can increase your pain tolerance. And asking for help, of course, few things. It can help you grow, improve your resilience, and help you develop relationships. So I'm hoping this is not how you guys manage your emotional stress. Sometimes we can feel like that, but hopefully not all the time. So now spiritual. This is also very kind of undermined and under talked about. Who here likes to do gratitude, or who here journals? I tend to journal every morning and just say thank you for being alive, thank you for my body, thank you for having this chance to talk, right? Traveling, I'm a big fan of traveling, and I think traveling is a great way to be humbled by how the world works and help others. Helping is huge. It can be so therapeutic to help. Calmness is power. I'm working on that myself right now on how to be calm. So calmness is probably the key to a lot. Of course, forgiveness as well, and acceptance. Acceptance is probably the hardest thing to do in life, but is the most effective way to achieve calmness. Right? So we're all meant to help each other out. Dogs are great as well. I'm so sorry. And we're almost done though. Last few slides. Let me just wrap up. Okay, one last few slides. All right, so our goal, sometimes colors can calm us down. So let's just look at this for a second. Blue, teal is meant to relax us. Blue is a very common color for calming. So I like to look at this sometimes just to look at it. This is like a sky blue. We live in beautiful sunny California. Sometimes just look outside the window, just stare into the sky and enjoy the color. It's a beautiful color. So never forget, growing old is mandatory, but growing up is optional. Okay, real quickly, we'll kind of skip through these steps or these stats. This is just on aging and Alzheimer's. As we get older, we are aging in our country and around the world. Majority of people who end up getting Alzheimer's, you're looking at advanced age, 85 and plus. Alzheimer's, per Alzheimer's Association and Alzheimer's Orange County, Alzheimer's disease was 5th leading cause of death in 2021. So it's a big deal, right? So especially as we're aging, a lot of more concern, a lot of more questions about Alzheimer's. For me as a doctor, I'm very big on educating and bringing awareness, because look at this. Look at this orange stat. More than 60% of Alzheimer's cases in patients over 65 are not diagnosed. Imagine ignoring cancer and heart disease or diabetes at 60%. Quite amazing how much we've neglected this, and it's now in the forefront. So there's always hope. I always tell patients, never give up. There's always something that can be done. I'm not a big fan of a lot of pills in medicine, but they do serve a great purpose. If you look carefully, Alzheimer's has, a bunch of organizations. This red square are actually all different medications that are being currently studied at phase 3 for possible help to reduce or prevent Alzheimer's. A couple of things, caffeine, interestingly enough, is on this list. Makes sense, stimulant. Anybody heard of Ozempic, Mounjaro? Hottest thing out there. So we're learning diabetes is type 3, or Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes, okay? There's so many testing now. There's memory tests. I screen with CogniView, which is a memory test. We do blood tests. We do imaging. There's so many things now that's in our power. And this is a great slide. This is from last year. The Alzheimer's International Convention had this somebody present. 45% of Alzheimer's is modifiable and is up to you. Hearing loss is big. Please get your hearing checked. Men are notorious for not wanting to get it checked. 7% reduced risk for hearing. Cholesterol, depression, inactivity, exercise, diabetes, smoking. Look how many, alcohol, obesity. How many things are in your power to help yourself? Okay. So I want to leave you with the power is within your hands. So everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. The siesta. All right. So real quickly, great resources. We are in California. There are so many resources for if you or anybody, loved ones are struggling with Alzheimer's. Please look at these websites. great support, great hotlines, a lot of information. Alzheimer's Orange County in general is fantastic, excellent resources. They have a helpline too, and they want to help. So many ways to connect. Please connect with us, visit our website. So thank you so much again. Appreciate you, your patience with those breaks in the presentation, but I hope this was interesting and hope you guys learned something. If you guys have any questions, we can definitely open it up. You can just go ahead and put it in chat if you do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patel. That was such a wonderful and insightful presentation. And as Dr. Patel said, if anybody has any questions, you can come off mute. You can type it into the chat box. I know it was a lot of great information, but if you have questions later on, you can email Dr. Patel, or you can email us or call our helpline. Dr. Patel, you're wondering if your slides will be available after this.
Yes, I can send you something and then maybe you can distribute it to everybody.
Okay, perfect. I will email out the slides to all those that attended.
All right, excellent. Okay. Well, great. Well, yeah, feel free. This is my information. You can always reach out to my email if you guys have questions you want to ask. And yeah, I really hope this was helpful and, keep it up. The power is within yourself. All right. Thanks, everybody.